Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are pointing the compass at a city that I think a lot of people think they know.
But honestly, they probably don't know the half of it.
Exactly. We are going to Leeds.
Leeds, the unofficial capital of Yorkshire. It's a city that really punches well above its weight.
It really does. And for you tuning in today, especially if you're not from the UK, I want you to take whatever mental image you have of a northern industrial city and just set it aside for a second.
Yeah, throw out.
Because looking through these sources, the Leeds we found isn't just factories and gray skies. It's this place of absolute wild contradictions.
It really is. I mean, it's a city where you have one of the most complete medieval abbeys in Britain, literally just down the road from a club that practically birthed the Goth movement.
Right, and where you have these incredibly grand Victorian buildings. I mean, they look like palaces. But instead of being stuffy museums, they're housing tattoo parlors and indie plant shops.
The adaptive reuse is incredible there.
And I have to bring this up immediately because it's in the notes, and I can't stop thinking about it. We found a story about a building that looks like an Egyptian temple and apparently had sheep grazing on the roof.
We will definitely get to the sheep.
Good.
It sounds like an urban legend, but it is a documented fact of Victorian engineering.
I can't wait. But that's really the vibe of this deep dive. We are exploring the culture of Leeds. We've got travel guides, historical archives, music journalism, and some great local insights.
And our mission here is to find the cultural heartbeat of the place. We're leaving politics entirely aside. We just want to understand the architecture, the history, the music, and these very specific community traditions that make Leeds, well, Leeds.
So let's start with the visual.
Yeah.
You walk around Leeds city center today. You are surrounded by this massive, confident architecture.
It feels huge.
It does. And the crown jewel in the reading material seems to be the Corn Exchange.
Absolutely. If you want to understand Leeds, you really have to start there. It opened in 1864, designed by Cuthbert Broderick.
The photos of this place are just stunning. It's this massive domed building. It almost looks like a cathedral, but for corn.
That's exactly what it was, a cathedral of commerce. Broderick, who also designed the town hall, he didn't really do subtle.
Clearly not.
He wanted to show the world that Leeds was an economic powerhouse. Back then, merchants were trading wheat and barley there 6 times a week. It was essentially the engine room of the region's food supply.
But here's where the story gets super interesting to me. It didn't stay that way. By the 1960s, the trade had dried up.
Yeah, completely.
The sources say it was only being used once a week. And get this, there were actual threats to demolish it. Can you imagine knocking that down?
It sounds crazy now, but it was a very real possibility. You have to remember, the 60s was the era of the brutalist wave in city planning.
And for those of us who aren't architecture buffs, what does that mean practically?
It means raw, concrete functionalism, very severe lines. City planners at the time often viewed these ornate Victorian buildings as clutter.
Just in the way.
Exactly. They wanted to modernize, so losing the Corn Exchange was a real risk. But it survived.
And thank goodness it did. Because today, it's not a museum piece. The notes call it a living landmark.
That's the key phrase.
It's full of independent shops. The sources mention places like the Plant Point for houseplants, Red Tattoo for piercings, and this food spot called OWT. It seems like it's become a symbol of independent economic power, just like it was for corn back in the day.
And that's a pattern you see across all of Leeds. It's called adaptive reuse. The city doesn't tear things down, it repurposes them. But if we're talking about ambitious, slightly eccentric Victorian industrialists, we have to talk about Temple Works.
Okay, this is the one. I was looking at the pictures in the research stack. It's a flax mill.
But it looks like a movie set.
It looks exactly like the Temple of Edfu in Egypt.
Literally, it has the massive pillars, the hieroglyphics, the winged sun discs. And this was built between 1836 and 1840.
Wow.
And this is a crucial context point for you listening. This was decades before the discovery of Tutankhamun.
Oh.
This wasn't part of that 1920s Art Deco Egypt craze we're so familiar with. This was one industrialist, John Marshall, basically showing off his immense wealth and eccentric ambition way ahead of the curve.
But why an Egyptian temple for a factory? Was it just for show?
Partly show, partly branding, but the design was actually driven by the function. And this brings us to the sheep.
Please explain the sheep. My notes say hydraulic sheep elevator, and I have so many questions.
Right, so John Marshall was spinning flax, and flax is a very tricky material. It needs a highly specific, humid environment to be spun correctly.
Okay.
If it's too dry, the threads snap. If it's too variable, the whole product is ruined. So Marshall needed to control the temperature and humidity inside this massive space.
And his solution was?
His solution was to cover the roof in earth and grass. A green roof in the 1840s.
That's incredibly ahead of its time.
It was. It retained moisture and kept the factory floor beneath it at a stable humidity.
That's actually ingenious. But then you have grass growing on your roof.
Exactly. And you can't exactly send a gardener up there with a scythe easily. It's a huge surface area. So Marshall's solution was natural lawnmowers. He put a flock of sheep on the roof.
Of course he did.
But then you have a logistics problem. How do you get the sheep up there?
You don't carry them up the stairs.
No. So he installed the first hydraulic elevator in Leeds, but it wasn't for people. It was specifically designed to lift the sheep onto the roof to graze.
That is the most Leeds thing I've ever heard. It's practical, it's industrial, but it is completely bonkers.
It really speaks to that creative grit the city is known for. This wasn't just eccentricity, it was industrial problem solving at a massive scale.
Yeah.
Marshall literally engineered an ecosystem on a factory roof. It tells us that these Victorian industrialists viewed themselves almost as gods, just reshaping nature to serve the loom.
That is such a cool insight. Speaking of grit, though, let's pivot to the history you can actually feel. And according to one source, smell.
Oh boy.
We're moving from architecture to museums. And Leeds has two that are just world-class, but totally different. First, there's the Royal Armouries.
Right, which is a national museum located at Leeds Dock. It holds the national collection of arms and armor.
And when we say collection, we don't mean a few swords on a wall. The scale here seems massive.
Yeah.
One of the articles highlights a specific piece, the elephant armor.
Yes. That really gives you a sense of the global scope here. It is a complete suit of armor, but for an Indian war elephant.
That's terrifying and amazing.
It's huge. It's imposing. It's composed of thousands of overlapping plates. It's just a reminder that Leeds isn't just looking at local history, it houses treasures of global warfare.
But then just a few miles away, you have the Thackeray Museum of Medicine. And the notes here suggest this is, well, not for the faint of heart.
It really isn't. The Thackeray is housed in a former Victorian workhouse and hospital.
So a heavy history already.
Exactly. That building itself has seen a lot of suffering, and the museum does not shy away from that.
The source mentions they've recreated a Victorian street inside the museum, which sounds quaint until you read that they also recreated the smells.
They did. It attacks all the senses. They want you to understand the visceral reality of public health in the 19th century.
Which was bad.
It wasn't clean and it wasn't pretty. You walk through and you smell the open sewers, the disease, the unwashed bodies.
And there's a mention of an exhibit, a video that shows a real amputation.
From the era before anesthetics, yes.
Yikes. Why go that far?
It's shocking, yes. But the point isn't just to gross you out, it's to highlight how far we've come. It's a celebration of medical progress by showing you the brutal baseline we started from.
That makes sense.
If you don't understand the pain of the past, you can't really appreciate the medicine of the present.
It seems like Leeds has this thread of radical confrontation with reality, whether it's industrial machinery or medical horror. And that actually transitions perfectly into the art scene. Because the art coming out of Leeds hasn't exactly been polite watercolors of rolling hills.
Far from it. And that radicalism often traces back to one place, the Leeds College of Art, which is now Leeds Arts University.